I have some news that might be shocking to a lot of people in our audience. If I say the number 97% and climate change, a lot of people in our audience know that that refers to the supposed consensus in our scientific community that human actions on our planet are causing climate change. And this is a number that's very often cited. We have a ton of science around this number. We have a ton of studies that defend this number. There's 97% consensus. And I have what might be very, very surprising news for many people in our audience today, which is that I'm ready to come clean and admit that the 97% number is flawed. It's not an accurate number. I don't want to call it fake news because that's giving them a win on the language, which I don't want to do, but it's in an incorrect number. And if you're a climate science denier and you're starting to feel aroused and titillated by what I'm saying, I want to encourage you to keep your clothes on just for a second, because it's not that 97% is too high. It actually is drastically low. It appears that the real consensus over recent history on human influence of our climate is 99.94%, not 97%. And this is based on a new meta-analysis that looked at more than 50,000 peer-reviewed climate change articles from 91 to 2015. And it's not 97% consensus, it's 99.94%. And even that number might be too low, because if you look at not 91 to 2015, but just like the last few years, it appears to be 99.99% consensus that human activities on our planet are influencing the climate. And one of the major problems is that belief in the science is extremely politicized. And if you look at a recent Gallup survey, which asked people basically three questions: are you worried about climate change? Do you know that there's a scientific consensus? And do you believe that humans are causing it? Democrats overwhelmingly believe that those three things are true, right? 85 to 90% of Democrats are worried. They believe that there is a scientific consensus, and they believe that humans are influencing the climate. On the other hand, only 35 to 42% of Republicans are either aware of or concerned about or believe that humans are influencing the climate. So this gets us to what I call informational incongruity. Okay, I've talked about this before. This is something that the audience seems to react very positively to, because it identifies what I think is a major problem. Level one is like, we know about an issue. We agree that it's an important issue, but we just disagree on our position is different, right? So like abortion. Abortion is a political issue. We could debate whether it's resolved or not based on Roe v. Wade, but we have significant disagreement about what the policy should be on abortion. A level two disagreement would be, we generally know about the issue, but we disagree how important it is. So like before same-sex marriage went national as a result of the Supreme Court decision, most people were aware of the controversy over same-sex marriage, but some people just didn't really care about it as an issue. They didn't think it was anything we needed to deal with. Like, listen, it's just not legal in some places, and that's good, and I don't care about that. Level three is a lot of people don't know about the issue. Level three, informational incongruity. That's like Fox News viewers who might have no idea that there's a major investigation into what took place between Trump and Russia. We can't even debate the merits of it. We can't even debate the importance of it, because some people aren't even aware that it is going on. And on climate change, that's kind of the direction that things are going. You don't even have a majority of Republicans realizing that a scientific consensus exists. So number one, I don't think anyone's going to be influenced because the real number is 99.94 versus 97, because if you already trusted the 97% number, you're not going to change your position because it's now 99.94. And if you weren't aware of that number or believe that it's fake anyway, you also don't care if it goes from 97 to 99. So I actually don't know how we can really get beyond this and start figuring out what to do about the climate science issue. But the numbers are stunning and at this point completely undeniable. And I'm curious whether you've experienced these sort of science is your religion people. There's people who will write into me and they'll say, David, you're touting science in a faith-based way, the same way that people tout religion. And I have to explain to people, well, hold on a second. Science has built-in self-correction mechanisms. And in fact, in science, people are encouraged. There are major rewards for people who can poke holes in what are the accepted scientific consensuses. I don't know what the plural is. You can win a Nobel Prize if you debunk the consensus on science. Where do you see that in religion? You just don't.
You just don't. But I think the religion connection is actually closer to politics because there are people doing politics as religion.
Sure.
And I think it's bleeding into science because what you find is, like you said, there's diehard Republicans that as part of their Republican identity are saying that this science is just, it's bunk, it's all a green conspiracy. That's a political religion. It really has nothing to do with the science. The thing that gives me a lot of hope is that when you look at the presidential elections, when you talk about hardcore Republicans, year after year after year, it's about 25% of us. So most of us don't fall into that category. 75% of us either look at this consensus and go like, yeah, it's real, or you're the people in the middle that either don't know, don't care. A lot of people, it's not really about climate science. So one of the things that I do on my show is, because that's controversial, I talk more about the pollution, because the solution is the same. Stop burning fossil fuels. So there's ways for us to get to solutions without having to deal with the political religions. I think one of them is just taking the 25% and be like, you're religious about this, we can't really talk. I prefer to talk to the 50% that aren't voting, that are in the middle, that just don't know what to do with this whole situation. And then the people that are already sold, the vast majority of us.
Yeah, that is something I talk about, which is you actually don't need to convince the outliers and the extremists in order to win elections, because we have 50% voter turnout in this country. And President Trump conceivably could win re-election based on a combination of low voter turnout and our electoral vote system with an approval in the 20s, right? In the high 20s, you can actually still win a presidential election because people don't vote. If the voting
Shout out to George W. Bush.
Yeah, sure. If the voter turnout went even just from roughly 50 to even something like 62%, you completely marginalize the ability of those extremists who have these and the religions go beyond the sort of political religion, I think is an interesting term, because you see those dogmatic beliefs around constitutionalism and constitutional originalism, the idea of the Constitution effectively as a sacred text similar to the Bible or the Quran or whatever else. You see it with this, what I call strict father morality. Strict father morality is the dogmatic idea that I claim to want to reduce abortion if I am a right-winger. And then someone comes to me and says, we know how to do it. Comprehensive sex education and ready access to contraceptives. I'm against that if I'm a right-wing conservative, because you are not actually behaving in the correct way if you have protected sex, non-procreative sex. You deserve the consequences, almost like a strict father saying, if you do it, you should get pregnant and you should be forced to carry the baby to full term and give birth to it. That is a dogmatic idea fundamentally. It's not a pragmatic idea where we actually know what works to reduce the number of abortions, right? And I think it applies even beyond climate change. There's a lot of these pseudo-religious dogmatic ideas. The other one is the free market, right? That exists on the right, this sort of religious approach to the free market. I don't actually think that just because we agree to the consensus doesn't guarantee what the policy should be. And I think that that scares some people on the right. Certainly, the reduction in fossil fuel use is sort of an obvious one, but I think that there's just a lot of people on the right who are scared to admit that they are aware of the consensus or just agree with the consensus because they believe that it definitely means, I don't know, no more SUVs or whatever it is. There's still a debate to be had over what the policy should be, although I think, as you pointed out, the direction that the policy should go is pretty obvious at this point.
It is, and I don't even agree necessarily that people on the right are against reducing fossil fuels.
Not in principle.
Yeah, because when you actually talk to people, I mean, there are plenty of conservative reasons why you should switch to renewable energy.
Absolutely.
You know, there's people that are for wind. In fact, I'm researching electric cars right now. And one of the people that is rumored to have saved the tax credits is Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa.
Yeah.
And you can't get more Republican than him, but he's into wind energy and the economics of it makes sense.
Sure.
So I don't think it's necessarily, and just out in the world, there are plenty of people that I know that are Republicans but are driving electric cars that do care about this, that know the science. But that's one of the problems I have with just like dividing people in the left and right, because my own father, he's gonna be so annoyed that I talk about him, but my own dad was a Republican, and when I was growing up, he counts himself as a libertarian now. Yep. He drives an electric car. He is singing the praises of it. He volunteered at an aquarium for years. Mm-hmm. You know, he's really into environmentalism. People just don't really fit very well into these boxes. And when it comes to fossil fuels, what I'm witnessing is that our Congress, which makes the laws, is far far more extreme than most of the country.
On most issues, that's true. And that also has a lot to do with the broader issues of how politics are financed and a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, totally.
The video you just watched was made possible by support from you. Please go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show. You can make a pledge of as little as $1 per month. And every dollar helps to support the work that we're doing, particularly in light of the YouTube ad boycott, which has been really bad.